For years, people taught you that you need to be saved, that you must seek a master, follow a doctrine, attain an enlightened state to be worthy of peace. But Seth, one of the deepest sources of consciousness wisdom, asserts something that can turn everything upside down. You do not have a soul. You are the soul. You do not need to evolve to become something greater. You only need to remember that you already are everything you seek. This video is not another piece of motivational content. It is a mirror. And if you have the courage to truly look at yourself, perhaps you will discover that the answers you thought were lost were whispering inside you all along. Prepare yourself for a journey of reunion. Here, we will not give you formula. We will remind you of what you have always known. Because what Seth reveals is not a theory, it is a reminder. And once you remember, there is no going back to forgetting again. We grew up hearing that we have a soul as if it were a precious object kept in God's pocket, awaiting final judgment. But the truth revealed with almost disconcerting simplicity by Seth is that you do not have a soul, you are the soul. Yes, exactly that. The soul is not observing you from some distant place sitting on a cloud with spiritual binoculars. It is the spark behind every thought, every breath, every step you take. The body is just a temporary instrument, a borrowed garment for exploring this dimension. The problem is that most people forgot this and began to live as if they were only the body, a fragile, anxious identity that fears the end. But who you really are never began and will never end. You are living consciousness in action, not a forgotten spiritual accessory in some cosmic drawer. When you truly understand this, something changes profoundly. The sense of separation between the human me and the divine me begins to dissolve. Decisions become lighter. Guilt loses its weight, and even hurry gives way to presence. Imagine a child playing with a toy and suddenly believing it is the toy. Funny, right? That is more or less what happens when we forget that we are the soul. You begin to define yourself by social security number, by what people said you were, by the bills you pay. But all those roles are like carnival costumes, colorful, intense, and fleeting. You, in essence, are what plays behind the costume. And realizing this is the first step toward real transformation. Seth explains that this error of believing we have a soul instead of that we are, it creates a false hierarchy inside us. It puts the ego on the throne and the soul as servant. But this inversion causes tremendous suffering because poor ego was not made to lead the orchestra. It plays well, yes, but only when it listens to the melody of the soul. When we try to live as if we are only ego, it is like driving a car using only the rearview mirrors. You cannot see the real road. The soul sees farther, deeper, and above all, sees with love. And that love is not sentimental. It is pure present. The feeling of knowing that you are this and always have been is like waking from a long dream of forgetting. To begin experiencing this truth in daily life, try this simple exercise. Close your eyes, breathe deeply, and tell yourself in a soft voice, I am the soul. I am using this body, but I am so much more. Do this for a few minutes and notice what changes in your perception. It may feel silly at first, you might even laugh, but keep going. This repetition, done with intention and presence, begins to break the layers of spiritual amnesia that time has piled upon you. The soul does not need to be discovered as if it were lost. It only needs to be remembered. It is like opening a window in a dark room. The light has been there outside all along, just waiting for a gesture. And it is in that silent recognition that everything begins to change, not like a lightning bolt from the sky, but like a breeze entering when you leave the door ajar. Life becomes lighter because you stop resisting your own nature. And when you truly understand that you are the soul, you cannot look at the world with the same eyes. You begin to notice signs, patterns, coincidences that once went unnoticed. And this is where the game changes. Because if you are the soul, and you are then perhaps that, soul has other gifts, other levels of existence, other fields of creation. And that is what we will talk about next. The soul did not come into being with you, and it certainly will not die with your body. It has no manufacture date or expiration. It is like sunlight crossing a window and forming unique patterns on each floor of every house. The essence remains the same, but manifests differently depending on where it touches. The soul is the part of you that never sleeps, never extinguishes, and never stops creating. It is living now simultaneously in dimensions the logical mind cannot yet fully grasp. But just because the mind does not understand does not mean it is not happening. Every intuition, déjà vu, vivid dream, or out-of-place chill is a whisper from those other layers. The soul is not bound by time as the body is. It moves through dimensions as effortlessly as someone moving from room to room in a house without walls. Seth teaches that the soul does not merely exist. It creates constantly, not occasionally, nor only when inspired. Creating is its breath. Your thoughts, feelings, desires all generate realities on different levels. When you imagine a scene in your mind, feel emotion, and believe in it, you are creating even if you do not notice. This is the silent power you carry at all times. And so learning to direct that power is the key to freedom. It is not a power that needs to be earned. It is already yours. You only need to remember how to use it. And this begins with a shift in perception. You are not a small being trying to please a greater force. You are that force in action playing the game and creating the board at the same time. Think of the soul as a fertile field of possibilities that never runs dry. You plant ideas, feelings, intentions, and harvest experiences. And this happens in more than one dimension, even if you only see the physical one. The life you see now is just a crack in the whole. Parts of you are living experiences in other times and places. Strange to imagine, right? But this is not science fiction. It is the science of consciousness. Seth explains that time is malleable and that past, present, and future are simultaneous states. This changes everything, because what you think about yourself today may be healing old versions of you and opening doors to futures that did not exist before. The soul dances outside the timeline, and when you begin to dance along the rhythm of life, changes. Want to begin feeling this in practice? Do a simple experiment. Before sleeping, tell yourself that you will connect with another version of you living in a wiser, lighter, more connected reality. Breathe deeply. Imagine that version smiling at you and go to sleep with that image. Do this for 7 nights in a row without forcing or expecting, just intention and surrender. You will be surprised by the insights, dreams, and even coincidences that start to emerge. That is you accessing another layer of your being, not invention, but remembrance. And the more you access, the more the soul reveals itself. And that is when you begin to understand why it never needed to be saved, only recognized. And the more you recognize this vastness, the more life begins to open from within. You stop seeing yourself as a mere character in a closed script and begin to realize you are writing the lines in real time. And you are not alone in that, because if the soul is multidimensional, then perhaps it carries memories, talents, knowledge the ego has yet to activate. And what happens when you start unlocking all of this? Then you realize that the knowledge you seek has never been outside, it came with you. From your very first breath, you already knew exactly what you needed to know. It does not seem so right, but it is true. The knowledge you look for out there in religions, books, social media, was already embedded in your being, except for one curious detail: to live this human experience intensely, you needed to forget. Like someone entering a game and accepting its rules, so the challenge makes sense. The ego was created as the character interacting with time-space and the limitations of the physical world. But who you truly are never has been limited. And here begins the most beautiful paradox of existence. The soul that knows everything chooses to forget, just to have the joy of remembering. Seth says the ego is not a villain, but rather a filter. It was developed to handle the 5 senses, linear time, and sequential logic. Imagine wearing a virtual reality headset. The world you see inside feels real. You react, you feel, you even forget you are wearing a headset. The ego is that device. But who holds the controller and chooses? The experience is the greater consciousness, which is you in essence. The problem is many identify so strongly with the game character that they forget the player. And that creates fear, doubt, and a feeling of being lost. But once you understand that the knowing has always been there, merely sleeping, you see everything in a new color. This forgotten knowledge does not reveal itself only in big epiphanies. Sometimes it appears as a strange feeling when meeting someone, an emotion. You cannot explain a memory that seems not to be yours. You know that sense of déjà vu? Those are clues, fragments of memory from parts of you that never forgot. You may try to rationalize, but the body feels it. The soul sends signals constantly, and the more attention you pay to those signals, the clearer they become. If you want to start awakening this knowledge, try the practice of intuitive writing. Take paper and pen, sit in silence. Breathe deeply and write any question in your heart. Then simply begin writing whatever comes, without thinking, judging, or trying to make sense. It may seem messy at first, but over time, you will notice messages, answers, phrases, not from your rational mind. That is your inner knowledge speaking through you. It is the soul remembering. Regular practice of this opens cracks for light to enter, and eventually, you trust what you feel more than what you are told. And here comes the key point. When you begin to trust what you feel, when you realize answers come from within, something magical happens. You stop chasing approval. You stop seeking ready-made formulas because you understand that nothing replaces your own connection. And that is when intuition reveals itself as the direct line to the soul. The silent voice always there waiting for you to remember how to listen. The soul does not speak with words, but it speaks all the time, and your favorite voice is intuition. That sudden knowing without knowing why, that out-of-time chill, that impulse to turn left when everyone says, go right. That is not coincidence. It is communication. Intuition is like a silent Wi-Fi, linking your human self to your greater consciousness. Seth explains that thoughts do not originate in the mind, they pass through it. And intuition is one of those subtle thoughts escaping logic, yet carrying ancient wisdom. You may not understand rationally, yet something inside recognizes. And once you learn to trust, you begin living more lightly, more aligned, more true. But there is a challenge. The ego is loud, the soul is quiet. While ego shouts, rules logic and fear, intuition whispers trust, simplicity, direction, and you find yourself torn. Follow the noise or listen to the whisper. Most were educated to follow the noise, to be rational, predictable, obedient. But the soul does not fit those molds. It plays outside the lines, and hearing intuition is learning to listen in silence, to create space between thoughts, to let ideas emerge without force, like sitting by a river watching the flow without needing to jump in to prove it exists. Intuition does not impose, it proposes. And do you know the best way to train this inner ear? By paying attention to small things. Yes, it starts like that. When you think of someone and they call, do not ignore it. When you feel you should take an umbrella on a clear day, take it when a place feels off without reason. Trust it. The soul tests your channel with small signals, and when you respond, the channel opens wider. It is like a friendship. The more you listen, the more trust builds and communication intensifies. Seth speaks of this as a gradual yet profound process. The soul does not need to convince anything. It only wants you to learn to listen with an open heart. You can also use dreams as listening tool. Before sleeping, ask yourself a simple question for the soul. Something like, what do I need to know now? Or what is the lightest direction for me? Then sleep with that intention and keep a notebook by your bed. Upon waking, jot down everything you remember, even if it seems disconnected. Over time, symbols repeat. Colors gain meaning, words jump off the page. This is not mind invention. It is symbolic response from the soul. And if you wish to go deeper, practice. Meditation focused on listening, sit in silence and simply say, I am here listening, without trying to control or prove anything, just presence, readiness to hear. And when you begin listening with the heart, You no longer need so many external confirmations because the soul speaks clearly, even in silence. And this kind of listening changes everything, because with each step guided by intuition, you draw closer to your essence. And that is when you realize you no longer need to look outside for answers, because what truly transforms is already within you, waiting for you to trust enough to truly listen. Everyone has done it. You ran to Google, called a friend, opened a book, or searched a YouTube video, hoping for a magic answer to what you felt. And there is nothing wrong with seeking, but Seth reveals that none of those external sources can replace the wisdom you already carry inside you. The soul, being eternal and multidimensional, has lived infinite experiences. It has more memory than any library on the planet, yet most forgot to access that internal archive and keep looking out there for someone to validate what only your heart knows, yet the true master is not on stage but in your silence. Of course, books can inspire, mentors can guide, religions can point the way, but none of that has more authority over your life than what pulses within you. When you really begin listening to yourself, you notice much of what you were taught does not resonate with your essence. It seems beautiful, but does not fit it. Is like wearing shoes, 2 sizes too big. And it is okay to respect those who taught you, but there comes a time when the soul wants to walk barefoot, to feel the ground of its own truth. And the truth does not come with a certificate or dogma. It comes with feeling when it is true for you. Your body relaxes, your mind quiets, your heart confirms. Want a simple test? Take any advice someone gives you, and before accepting, close your eyes and ask yourself, does this make sense for me? Does this strengthen me or shrink me? Your body responds before the mind forms an opinion. If you feel a knot in the stomach, tightness in the chest, or slight tension, perhaps that advice is not your path, but if something opens inside you and lightness arises, it is a sign that it speaks to your soul. This kind of inner listening is more reliable than any external opinion, and the most beautiful part is the more you trust it, the less you get lost in paths that are not yours. The inner knowledge begins guiding you with both firmness and lightness. Seth asserts that truth with a capital T needs no external proof, because it reveals itself in practice. You feel when you are aligned, you sleep better, eat better, attract situations coherent with your purpose. Things begin to flow, not because you became a spiritual master, but because you stopped betraying yourself. And that is far more powerful than any miraculous technique, because now you no longer live seeking approval. You live in harmony with your internal compass that does not point north, but inward. And whenever you doubt, remember, stepping away from the noise of the world is the first step to clearly hear the truth of your soul. And when this truth starts manifesting in your daily life, even the hardest decisions become simpler, because you no longer choose based on fear or doubt. You choose based on alignment, and life in response opens up. But how do you keep this listening channel active? How do you ensure this connection with inner wisdom remains alive amid the distractions of the modern world? That is where specific practices taught by Seth come in, making communication ever clearer. Knowing this knowledge is within each of us is powerful, but accessing this source is what transforms everything. Seth shows that this connection requires no effort nor complicated ritual, only presence, and the first practice is simple yet profound. The meditative state you need, not sit lotus position or light incense. Just find a moment each day to close your eyes, silence your mind, and observe what arises without trying to control. Breathe deeply, release your body. Let thoughts pass like clouds, and gradually you will notice that in the silence between thoughts, something begins whispering, and that something is you in your purest form, without mask, hurry, or noise. Another fundamental practice is dialogue with your inner self. Yes, talking to yourself, not with the critical voice of ego, but with the knowing part. Try sitting with a notebook, writing a question as if speaking to a loving, wise mentor. Then switch perspectives and answer as that mentor. It may feel odd at first, but it works over time. You will be amazed at the clarity of the responses. This is you accessing deeper layers of your consciousness. Seth calls this active reconnection, and the more you practice, the more natural it becomes, because in truth, you are not creating this wisdom, you are remembering it. Active imagination is another powerful key, not uncontrolled fantasy, but guided intentional imagination. Choose a scene, symbol, or image representing what you wish to understand. Close your eyes and interact with it. If it is a temple, enter it. If it is a figure, converse. If it is light, feel its message. Let the experience unfold like a lucid dream. This exercise opens channels of understanding. Logic cannot reach the soul. Loves symbols. It communicates in metaphors, images, sensation, and the more you play with this, the more you learn its language. It is like learning a new tongue. Only this time, the tongue is that of the soul. And if you enjoy dreaming, here is a valuable tip. Dreams are windows to the soul before sleep. Declare your intention. Mentally, I want to receive an answer about such situation during the dream. Keep a notebook by your bed upon waking record. Everything, even if it seems disjointed over time, symbols repeat, colors gain meaning, words leap off the page. Seth teaches dreams are like letters from the soul, written in code, and as you begin decoding them, life awakens too. This simple habit, done consistently, can bring profound insights that transform how you see yourself and the world around you. And if you want to combine all this into one flow, try intuitive writing after meditation, or a dream. When ego is quieter, the soul speaks louder. Write without thinking or judging. Let the pen flow. Read only afterward. You will be surprised by the wisdom that emerges. These practices are not mere techniques. They are portals, and each time you step through one, a new level of clarity reveals itself. And it is in that internal space, full of silence and wisdom, that you find what the whole world tries to sell in pieces. And the more you access that place, the more you realize it was never outside, and perhaps you were never truly disconnected. Deep down, you always knew, even when you seemed lost, when everything fell apart. When you sought in books, gurus, formulas, there was a voice inside quietly saying, "Look this way." That voice never fell silent. You only drifted away, and that is okay, because the soul's journey is not a straight line. It is circular, spiraled, full of turns and returns. What matters is that now you are coming home, and this home is not a place. It is a state of being. Seth reminds us, the soul never abandoned you. It has been there all along, patiently waiting for the moment the ego tires of shouting and begins listening. Listening to what? The wisdom pulsing in every cell of your body. The silent feeling that everything makes sense when you stop fighting your own essence. It is not about learning something new. It is about remembering. And in that remembering, you heal, you reunite, you realign. The feeling is like returning from a long trip and realizing your bedroom scent were always there. The world may be chaotic. The news may scream. People may doubt, but inside you is a calm, firm, wise center, and that center is not. For sale needs no conquering, no explanation. It only needs recognition. And from there, everything changes. You begin moving differently, speaking with more presence, feeling more deeply, deciding with more confidence, because now you no longer seek outside what you always carried within. And the most beautiful part, when you reconnect with this truth, the world responds. The right people arrive, situations align, synchronicities multiply, as if the universe said, finally, you return to the right place. And that place is you, not the conditioned, wounded, tired you, but the real you, the living soul dancing behind the roles. And if all this is within, then what else are you capable of remembering? Accessing, creating, that is where the path does not end. It expands, because the soul, now recognized, begins taking you even deeper to new layers, new possibilities, new levels of perception. What once seemed impossible now becomes an invitation, and what was confusion now becomes a map. Seth never wanted to be your master. He only wanted to remind you that you are already the master you seek. You only needed to trust, and when that trust blossoms, silence becomes guidance, and guidance becomes certainty, and certainty becomes creation. And when you least expect, something inside you smiles and whispers, "Now you remember." But what if that remembrance is only the beginning? What if there is still more wisdom waiting to emerge? What if the soul now awakening wants to show you what comes after all this? Because if you have come this far, it is because you are ready, and the next step already has begun. Now tell me what changes in your life from today onward, knowing that everything you seek already exists within you. What happens when you stop looking outside and begin trusting what you feel, what you dream, what pulses inside your chest? Will you still ignore that silent call forever, trying to remind you of who you are? Or will you finally stop, breathe, and listen? The truth is, no one can walk this path for you. But the good news is, you need no one's permission. The soul already knows the way, and it is already guiding you. You only need to begin, beginning today, beginning now. And tell me what you will do with all this you remembered here. If this video touched something inside, leave your comment. Tell me what awoke. Share it with someone you love. And of course, if you want to keep remembering together, subscribe to the channel, activate notifications, and join us on this journey back home. Because the soul never forgot you, and now you will never forget it.